There were two divisions to choose from. He decided, based on his very misinformed intelligence, that he would send the 30.
What if a single photograph could rewrite the history of the United States? Not a diary, not a secret memo buried in government archives, but one haunting image that refused to conform to the rules of its own century. That is exactly what happened when Claire Donovan, an ordinary woman cleaning out her family attic, uncovered a century-old Civil War photo that experts insisted could not possibly exist. At first, it seemed like nothing more than an antique tucked away in a dusty trunk. But when experts zoomed in, their faces went pale. The image contained color decades before color photography was invented, faces that did not appear in any Civil War archive, and, most chilling of all, a silent figure standing between Abraham Lincoln and General Ulysses S. Grant. The story of this photograph is not just a historical oddity. It is a buried legacy, a secret that was never meant to be uncovered. The discovery in the attic. Claire Donovan had no intention of making history that day. She was simply reorganizing her family's old farmhouse attic, tossing aside broken furniture and brittle boxes. But one heavy trunk caught her eye. The brass latch was corroded, the leather straps nearly falling apart. Inside, she expected nothing more than old letters and keepsakes. She found railroad bonds, lace gloves, faded correspondence, and loose buttons. But buried deeper was something heavier, a cracked leather photo album. Most of the images were predictable black and white portraits, stiff and lifeless, typical of the 1800s. But hidden near the back, sealed in a waxy sleeve, was a single photograph unlike any she had ever seen. When Claire peeled back the wax, her breath caught. It was Abraham Lincoln, unmistakable in his black frock coat and tall hat. Around him stood Union officers, their sabers glinting in the sunlight. But this was no ordinary photo. It was in full color. The blue of the uniforms, the dusty brown of the boots, the subtle sheen of Lincoln's black suit, all vivid, all impossible for 1865, the historian who turned pale. Unable to dismiss what she had found, Claire contacted Professor George Kramer, a Civil War photography expert she once met at her university. When Kramer saw the photo, he didn't speak at first. He simply leaned in, trembling, as though his entire career had just been upended. "You need to tell me exactly where you found this," he whispered. Claire described the trunk, the attic, the wax paper. Kramer examined the photo's stock and nearly lost his composure. "This is Alabama silver print paper from the 1860s, he explained, "but it shouldn't be able to hold color. This isn't fake, and that's the scary part." Soon the photo was taken to the New York Historical Society for forensic analysis. Specialists examined it under high-resolution scanners, and the results shocked everyone in the room. The pigments were embedded in the print itself, not painted or tinted afterward. The chemistry resembled Kodachrome, but Kodachrome wouldn't exist until the 1930s. Somehow, this photograph had been created with technology nearly 70 years ahead of its time. The discovery alone was enough to stun historians, but for Claire, something else stood out, something far more personal. The man in the middle. While experts debated pigments and chemical processes, Claire couldn't look away from one detail. Standing silently between Abraham Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant was a man with no recorded name. He wasn't an officer, wore no visible rank insignia, and carried no ceremonial saber. His expression was steady, calm, almost out of place. Claire recognized him, not from history books, but from an old family photograph dated 1912. A farmer standing by a barn with one hand on a dog's head. The resemblance was undeniable. The jawline, the ears, the slope of the eyebrows. It was her great-great-grandfather, William Donovan. But how could he be there, in full uniform, standing next to Lincoln in 1865? According to Civil War records, William Donovan was a medic with the 104th New York Infantry. His service ended abruptly when he was declared missing in action on April 6, 1865, 3 days before General Lee's surrender at Appomattox. Yet here he was, alive and present, in a photograph dated April 9th. The shadow of a hidden network. The more Kramer dug, the stranger the story became. He uncovered obscure War Department notes from April 1865, One memo contained a chilling line: WD moved to shadow post per Al's request, not to be logged. No weapons drawn unless required. WD William Donovan, Ali Abraham Lincoln. The implications were staggering. Historians had long speculated that Lincoln didn't fully trust his cabinet and may have built a private network of loyal operatives. The memo suggested Donovan was reassigned to a covert role, one never meant to appear in military records. A message in the uniform. As if the photo weren't unsettling enough, further scanning of Donovan's coat revealed something even darker. Sewn in faint thread beneath the lapel were words nearly invisible to the naked eye. Target verified. Stand until April 14th. The room fell silent. April 14th, 1865. The night President Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater. If authentic, the stitching meant Donovan had knowledge of a threat against Lincoln's life. Perhaps he was assigned to guard the president until that date. Perhaps he was meant to stop what was coming. But if so, why did history remember him as missing in action? Technology that shouldn't have existed. While historians argued over William Donovan's role, forensic experts turned their attention back to the photograph itself. How could such vibrant, natural color exist in an image from 1865? Civil War photography was exclusively black and white. Even hand-tinted photos of the period looked crude compared to the rich hues in this image. Yet spectral scans revealed something impossible. The pigments were fused into the emulsion itself. Beetroot, indigo, gum arabic, and animal-based binders combined in a process that appeared decades ahead of its time. One lab report concluded bluntly, not possible by known 19th century methods. But then another clue emerged. A journal entry from one of Matthew Brady's assistants, dated 1866, recorded a cryptic line. The president requested one unique chromatic plate for his legacy image. No demonstration. A private development is advised. Could it be that Abraham Lincoln himself commissioned an experimental color portrait to serve as a time capsule? If so, the photo was never intended for the public, but for future generations, an artifact deliberately engineered to survive history's erosion. The letter from Al. As astonishing as the photograph was, it wasn't the end. When Claire revisited the old leather album that had once held the photo, she noticed something hidden deep in its lining, a fragile envelope addressed simply to William. Inside was a letter, faded but still legible. Its tone was unmistakable, measured, solemn, and heavy with the weight of history. At the bottom, the signature read simply, Al. The letter instructed Donovan to stand visible among those who do, even if history forgets you. It acknowledged that truth often mattered little to those in power, and hinted at the price of carrying burdens too dangerous to share. To Claire and to Kramer, the conclusion was inescapable. The letter was written by Abraham Lincoln himself. The photograph had been the riddle. The letter was the answer. Together, they revealed that Donovan had not been a forgotten medic, but a trusted agent positioned by Lincoln's side during the war's most pivotal days. His anonymity had been intentional. His silence, a command. A legacy buried in silence. In the aftermath, Claire Donovan faced a choice. The photograph could have been sold to collectors for millions or hidden once again, fulfilling her ancestors' warning to burn it. But she chose a different path. Partnering with the New York Historical Society, Claire helped curate an exhibit not about Lincoln, nor about war, but about the man who stood in silence. The centerpiece was an enlarged replica of the mysterious photograph, encased in glass and lit from behind. Visitors could see every detail: the empty chair, Lincoln's weary eyes, and Donovan's calm presence at the center. Beside the image hung the letter signed Al and a timeline reconstructing Donovan's life. His enlistment, his disappearance, the War Department memo, the stitched message, and his erased place in history. At the top of the exhibit, printed in bold above the empty chair, were Lincoln's own words from the letter: "Some men fight with swords, others with silence." That was William Donovan's legacy. Not a general, not a hero celebrated in parades, but a man entrusted with a secret heavier than any weapon. What the photograph truly means for historians, the photograph remains a paradox. It is evidence of a photographic process decades ahead of its time. It places a missing soldier beside Abraham Lincoln days after records say he vanished. And it suggests that Lincoln himself built a covert network of operatives outside official channels, men tasked with protecting him during the fragile final days of the Civil War. For Claire, however, the meaning was simpler. Her great-great-grandfather had fulfilled his orders. He stood where no one expected him. He carried a truth too dangerous for his own era. And though history erased his name, time itself has remembered. If this story captivated you, make sure to subscribe for more untold mysteries, lost legacies, and hidden truths that history tried to bury. Share this with someone who loves history's darker corners, and drop your thoughts in the comments.